not take it into consideration or hold it against you if you choose not to testify. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And I also would instruct them on this right. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. By testifying, you understand you waive this constitutional right.
Yes.
By testifying, do you understand that this waiver is unconditional? In other words, even if your attorney only asks you questions about certain topics, the Commonwealth will have the ability to ask you about other topics as well, even if they were not brought up on direct. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Have you discussed with your lawyer about testifying or not testifying?
Yes.
And after discussing it with him and considering what I just told you, is it your decision today to testify?
Yes.
And are you entering this decision to testify freely and voluntarily today?
Yes.
All right. Sir, I do find your decision to testify has been made knowingly, intelligently, and with a knowledge of the consequence of the waiver, and I'll accept your waiver this time. You can have a seat, sir. All right. Are we ready for the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Just to let counsel know, the jury can come on Friday, 10 o'clock to 4:30 p.m., okay? Somebody has an appointment at 4:30 and somebody's has an appointment at 9:30 or going to be here at 9:30, so, but they can do 10 to 4:30 on Friday, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, perfect. Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Your next witness?
Your Honor, I call Brendan Banfield.
All right, could you just move the microphone up for you? There you go.
Your Honor, I call Brendan Banfield.
All right.
Do you swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case under penalty of law? Thank you.
Sir, can you state your name and spell your name for the court reporter?
Brendan Banfield, BrendanBanfield.
And Brendan, how old are you?
40.
And you were married to Christine Banfield, correct?
Yes.
And how long were you and Christine together?
We were together since we were 18.
And how did you meet?
We met freshman year at college at Quinnipiac University.
Now, where are you originally from?
I am from Long Island, New York.
And is that where you grew up?
Yes, I lived there the majority of my life.
Now, what prompted you to come down to Virginia?
I received a promotion from my job with the Internal Revenue Service. I previously was a tax compliance officer, and I received a promotion to special agent with IRS criminal investigation.
Okay, we'll get back to that later. Let's talk about your family. Before Christine's death, describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your family was.
My family was me, Christine, and my daughter Valerie.
And what kind of things would you do? Well, prior to you having Valerie, what kind of things would you and Christine enjoy together?
Christine and I had a very active social life. We spent a lot of time with our friends. This included playing board games and cards, as well as going on vacations together, and going on vacations with other couples that we were friends with. We did a lot of hiking, going to different forests and different mountains kind of around the country. We also spent some time. We played kickball together. We did quite a bit intramurally.
Okay. And when Valerie came along, were you in New York or were you in Virginia?
We were still in New York at that point.
Okay. And so how old was she when you left New York?
She was not one yet. She was 10, 11 months.
Okay. Now, what kind of things, and sorry, once again, before Valerie, what kind of things would, in addition to the hiking, what kind of things would you and Christine enjoy doing together?
I would say that we spent a lot of time together. When we weren't working, we did a lot of work around our house. We had two dogs, two huskies that we took care of. We're often taking them on our walks and hikes.
And so, in addition to those things, you also both worked?
Yes.
And what did Christine do for work?
Christine had several different jobs. Her primary position was as a pediatric intensive care unit nurse. At other points, she did private health care for an individual family. She also did some product training for medical devices, and she also worked as a sexual assault nurse examiner for several years.
Okay. And where was that? Was that in New York?
Those were in New York, and when we came to Virginia, she continued as a pediatric intensive care unit nurse and trainer for Inova here in Virginia.
Okay. Now, in terms of your work, when you were in New York, what did you do?
I mostly worked for the Internal Revenue Service. Before I came to Virginia, I was a tax compliance officer. I also worked at a math tutoring center known as Mathnasium, where I was center director, and Christine actually worked there with me as well.
Was this?
Generally, we had about 5 to 7 employees in addition to ourselves. I ran most of the day-to-day activity which would be the after-school hours for when kids would come and study math with the tutors. I did math assessments. I spoke to the parents about where their child was and how we could generally get them to where they would be needed to be, where at their current grade level. Christine helped quite a lot with the hiring process. She worked on marketing. She also spent a lot of time tutoring some of the younger students.
And how long did the two of you run that business together?
About 3 years.
Okay. And when you moved from New York to Virginia, what, if anything, did you do with the business?
Prior to moving to Virginia, we sold the business because we weren't going to be able to operate it from Virginia.
Now, you indicated previously that Valerie was born up in New York. How old was she when she came down to Virginia with you?
I believe about 11 months. I don't know the exact date that we moved here, but yes.
Now, in terms of Christine's career and your career moving from New York to Virginia, were you both in line with coming down here for your job?
It was a promotion for myself, but it was also ended up being a promotion for Christine when she applied to Inova. because she was going to be training the newer hires as well after she finished her own orientation period. And so this was going to be a pay raise, and she always liked mentoring new nurses when she was at Stony Brook Hospital. So this allowed her to more formally control some of the training process of the nurses in the pediatric ICU.
And so did she look at this move, even though it was for your job and your training, did she look at this as something that was a positive, or?
I would say that once she started applying to positions here, because she applied to like Children's National Hospital and a few others, and she realized some of the opportunities with her background, that this was going to be positive for her career as well. But I mean, she was also concerned because we weren't going to be next to our family, which was mainly in New York at that point.
Okay.
But there was a lot of benefit, and we viewed that it was beneficial to us and our family and Valerie.
Now, you met when you were 18, so how long were you together, including your non-married life and married life?
About 19 and a half years.
And how would you characterize your relationship with Christine?
For the most part, we were pretty inseparable. We were together the entire time. We didn't break up at any point. We were from college to our first jobs after college, to buying our first house together, to marriage, to getting a dog and a second dog, and then moving down here. We were always together, always planning for the future. This was part of our life.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about Valerie. Were you and Christine actively involved in Valerie's life?
Yes, I would say that we were very active in Valerie's life.
Okay, when you invited Valerie into the family, when she came into the family, how did that work within regard to your family dynamic?
Mr. Carroll, I think you had the wrong name. When you invited Valerie into the family?
Their daughter.
The daughter? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when Valerie was born, I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
So I'm sorry, there's a little confusion, I apologize. Valerie, your daughter, I said invited her into your life.
Yeah.
When she was born, how did that affect the relationship, and how did you all kind of change to take care of Valerie?
I would say that Valerie brought all of our family closer together, including my mother and our in-laws. It kind of brought everyone near to each other. There was a lot of overlap, a lot of family visits, a lot of care from specifically both grandmothers, helping both me and Christine when Valerie was born, and that it was a very joyous moment for our family. She was really the first grandchild for both sets of grandparents.
And so when she was born, it sounded like a positive thing for everything.
Yes.
And what, if any, involvement did you have, and what involvement did Christine have, knowing that you're both working full time?
So our schedules are a bit strange for childcare purposes. Christine would work 12-and-a-half-hour shifts, which generally meant that she was leaving at 6:30 in the morning and would be coming back at roughly 7:30 at night. When I was in New York, I was working 6 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. And so on days where both of us were working, generally one of the grandmothers was the primary caregiver when Christine's maternity leave and my leave ended after Valerie was born.
Okay, and so it worked out between all of you?
Yes, it seemed to be going pretty well.
Okay, now, how old is Valerie now?
Valerie's she'll be 8 in March, so 7 currently.
Okay, and do you, since this situation has started, do you have contact with her?
Yes, I talk to her basically every day by video chat, often also by phone.
Now, when she was younger, what kind of involvement did you have with her education?
I spent a lot of time on her education. I guess I've spent a lot of time teaching math over the years, and even from before she was in preschool, I spent a lot of time basically what I would call numerical fluency, starting with counting and moving up through. I've currently been working with times tables with her, which is above grade level. So I've been doing math work with her basically from 2 until present. But I also monitor quite a bit of what work she does at school, and with this, I spend a lot of time reading with her, and we do. I guess I would say that I make. I call them activity pages, but essentially they're like crossword puzzles and word searches, rhyming words, or consonant combinations such as like ST or CK, and then I'll give a description of a word, and then the word will match. So if it was like TR, and this is a plant that grows tall, she might write tree, and things like that, so that she would work additionally on whatever letter combinations they're currently working on in school as additional practice. I do a lot of design work for that also.
Okay, and you're designing these things for her to be able to continue kind of working with you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what about things like science and engineering and all that sort of thing? Did you ever get into any of that with?
So we always did quite a bit of Legos, basically starting at like 2, but after that, we started doing these projects from Kiwi Company, where you would do things like make a little device that would spin a coin for you, or that would launch a disc and you could aim it at a target. We went past that, and now we were doing these Crunch Lab boxes, where we were working on things like rocket launches, and there was quite a few others. There was designing of animals and like stuffed animals, and there was also like different circuits where it would show you how to design basically a button, and then when pressing the button would allow like animations to move or things like that, and it would show more details of how a lot of electronics would work.
What kind of things would you and Christine do with her?
We spent a lot of time in nature, the 3 of us. Behind our house is Frying Pan Farm. So walking distance, we have walking trails, and we can walk to Frying Pan Farm where Valerie would definitely like to see the animals. We had a membership to the National Aquarium in Baltimore, and that was, we went there frequently. Sorry, was there more to your question?
It was about the 3 of you doing things together.
We also spent we would go on vacations. There was quite a bit of spending time with family in terms of going to the water, whether going to the beaches or even with my in-laws going on their boat and going fishing.
Now, how did you observe the relationship between Christine and Valerie?
Christine loved Valerie very dearly, and Valerie was very attached to her mother. This is, it was tragic, their separation, but when Valerie was always very excited as soon as Christine would get home from work. She would run up to her mother and say, be happy, and call her mama. And, they spent quite a bit of time doing art-related projects. Christine would often bring Valerie to dance when she was not working.
Now, did you love your wife?
Very much.
Did you want to continue your marriage with your wife?
Yes.
Do you love your daughter, Valerie?
More than anything.
Your Honor, I'm going to try to show some pictures,
Okay,
if I can.
all right.
We're watching a critical moment in the Commonwealth's case against Brendan Banfield. The Virginia husband, accused of murdering his family's au pair, is currently on the stand in his own defense. Banfield is facing first-degree murder charges, and this is a high-stakes move. Jurors are now hearing directly from him about what happened the night she died, and whether this was, as prosecutors say, a calculated killing, or, as the defense suggests, something far more complicated. Court is in session, Banfield remains on the stand, and all eyes are on how he holds up under cross. Let's go back in.
Sir, can you see the picture that's on the screen?
Yes.
Your Honor, we'd identify that as defense exhibit number 220. Do you recall that situation?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and Your Honor, I move that in as defense exhibit 220.
Any objection?
If we could lay some foundation.
All right, just a foundation.
Do you recall this event?
Yes,
When was that?
this was a trip that we took that was in Pennsylvania. We had gone to the Poconos, and we spent some days there in a cabin. This was during that trip. We went to a mud run called Warrior Dash.
And do you remember when that occurred?
I mean, not the exact date, but I would say that it was. So I would say it was in 2018.
Okay, so would that have been?
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, probably, sorry. I think it's closer to like 2015.
Okay, so that would have been when you were living in New York?
Yes.
And that would have been prior to Valerie?
Yes.
And is this Christine with you?
Yes, it is.
And Your Honor, move that in as defense exhibit 220.
Judge, I'm not sure how a 10-year-old photo is relevant, but given that,
Do you have an objection or not?
no, it's fine.
No objection, 220.
And so was this a plan that you made to go to the mud run, or is this something that you just?
No,
how did it come about?
We planned a whole trip to the Poconos. We went to a concert while we were there. We spent time. We spent time in a cabin. We did quite a bit of hiking. It was a fun trip.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to move to the next slide.
All right.
That would be identified as Exhibit 221. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
Was this the same race?
It is not.
Where is this located?
This one took place on Long Island, close to our house in, I believe, Calverton.
Okay. Your Honor, I move that in as Defense Exhibit 221.
Any objection?
No.
221?
Sorry, Your Honor, to the next slide. Exhibit 365. Is that a picture? What is that a picture of?
This is a picture of me and Christine on a fishing boat that leaves out of Port Jefferson.
And do you know when that was?
Probably 5 or 6 years ago.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I think I said, I think it's 365. Did I say that?
Yeah, you said
Okay,
365.
thank you. Your Honor, I move that in as Exhibit 365.
Any objection?
No.
365.
And sir, do you see this video or this photograph?
Yes, I do.
And who's depicted in this photograph?
This is me and Valerie, and Christine's face seems to be cut off, but I believe that's her as
Is that
well.
her in there? Okay. And do you know when that was taken?
This appears to be when Valerie was 4, probably the fall before Christine died.
Your Honor, I move this in as Defense Exhibit 366.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
366?
Sir, do you see this one?
Yes, sir.
And who is that with you?
Christine.
And is that, well, tell me what it is.
I believe that this is at a rehearsal dinner for one of our friends' weddings, the day before their wedding.
And where did that take place? New York or Virginia?
New York.
Your Honor, I move that in as Defense Exhibit 367.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
367?
Sir, do you see that?
Yes.
And what if, who are the people involved in that?
This is me, Christine, and Valerie.
And do you remember that?
This is on a flight from here in Virginia to Florida before we were going on a cruise. This would have been in 2022.
Your Honor, I move that in as Exhibit 368.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
368?
Sir, do you recognize this picture?
Yes, this is me, Christine, and Valerie on the cruise after that flight.
Your Honor, I move that in as 369.
All right. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
369?
And sir, do you remember this?
Yes, this is on the same cruise at a formal dinner that we went to there. And this is Valerie is excited for, I believe, dessert to be coming, and Christine seems very happy about it.
Your Honor, I move that in as Defense Exhibit 370.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
370?
Sir, do you see the exhibit on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
We took 2 cruises in 2022. This would be the one that's in November. This was the first time Valerie went ice skating. I took her ice skating on the cruise ship.
And was that Christine taking the picture, do you know?
I think I took the picture myself.
Okay, was Christine on that cruise?
Christine was on that cruise, but she did not go ice skating.
Okay. Your Honor, I move that in as Defense Exhibit 371.
Any objection?
No. Thank you.
371?
And sir, do you see this?
Yes.
And what is this a picture of?
This is on that same cruise. We were with our friends. Another couple, they have a son that's the same age as Valerie. They would be the ones that took this photo.
Your Honor, I move that as Exhibit 372.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
372?
Do you remember this picture, sir?
Yes.
Where was that?
This is in New York, when Valerie was still less than 1.
And did Christine take this picture?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move that in as Exhibit 373.
Any objection?
No objection.
373?
Dinner.
I think you skipped like 20.
Yeah, I must have. Sir, do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And who are the people in that photo?
This is my grandmother. Valerie calls her Gigi. And this is Valerie when she was still 0. This is at my mom's house in New York.
Your Honor, I move that in as Exhibit 374.
Any objection?
Judge, at this point, I am going to
You wanna
object to
approach?
relevance.
You want to approach?
Sir, can you see the photo on the screen, Exhibit 375?
Yes, I can.
And what is that?
Christine took a picture of me when Valerie was only a couple months old. Valerie snuggled up with me in bed.
Your Honor, move that in as Exhibit 375.
Any objection?
Judge, objection, relevance, and cumulative.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Sir, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, what's the significance of this photo in terms of your family?
This is taken in Georgia, in Brunswick, Georgia. This is the day of my graduation from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center Academy. And Christine and Valerie had visited me for the graduation ceremony.
Your Honor, I move this in as Commonwealth's or Defense Exhibit 377.
I'm sorry, Judge, same objection, relevance, and cumulative.
Sustain the objection to relevance and cumulative.
Sir, let's move on. Did you have a relationship with Juliana Perez Magahais?
Yes.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when did that start?
I guess the relationship started as professional in October of 2021 when she came to be a au pair or a nanny for our family.
Okay, and she came through an agency?
Yes, from Cultural Care is the agency.
What were the parameters of the cultural care exchange that she came through? Do you know?
She would come and provide childcare for the family. It would include room and board, that she would be able to take educational opportunities, such as at a local community college. She can work, I believe, up to 45 hours a week, and she would generally provide a loving environment and activities for Valerie.
Okay, and had you had a previous au pair before her?
Yes, we had an au pair prior to her. Her name was Amanda. She was with us for 2.5 years.
And so Juliana was your second au pair?
Correct.
And so explain kind of from when she got there in October 21, what were her duties and how did you utilize her time when you and Christine were working?
So once we moved to Virginia, our work schedules were, I guess, more erratic because my work schedule was not set any longer as well. So Christine would still be working generally the 12.5-hour days, but I may have to work at hours that could start at 5 in the morning and sometimes could be going late into the evening. So while generally I would know what I had to do for the day and maybe how long it would take, it wasn't convenient for conventional childcare in terms of having Valerie go to, say, a daycare, because generally they're not open at 6:30 in the morning until nighttime. So generally, the au pair that we had would work similar hours to that Christine had. And when I got home from work, the au pair would be no longer working for the day, or if it was on the weekend that Christine had to work, the au pair generally would be off. So the au pair kind of worked basically 3 12-hour shifts coinciding with Christine's job most of the time. But sometimes if Christine didn't have that many hours during the regular work week, Christine may choose to have the au pair work other hours so that Christine could get things done around the house or other activities that she had to do.
So in terms of your contact with Juliana, describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what kind of contact would you have on a daily basis prior to having a relationship?
Prior to having a relationship, it was mostly logistical. I may inform her when I was going to get home from work, if I had any delays, making sure that Valerie was getting to, say, dance lessons if Christine and I were not available then. Juliana would generally bring Valerie to preschool on the days that she was working. And we might just talk about activities for her to do with Valerie on days that they were working.
Okay. And when was it that this turned from a working relationship to something else?
In August of 2022.
Okay. Describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that happened.
So, in August, Juliana and I were home alone. I had to work on both Saturday and Sunday, so I believe the original day was a Friday. Christine and Valerie were in New York, and Juliana started texting me while I was preparing food in the kitchen. It was an unusual line of text as she was complaining about.
Let me, if I may just
Sure.
interrupt, where was she and where were you in the house?
I was in the kitchen. I believe she was upstairs in her room.
Okay, sorry, please go, continue.
It was a unusual text conversation in terms of that Juliana was complaining about her dating activity and the people that she was seeing at the time. I don't particularly like texting, and I think I basically said that if she wanted to talk, that she could come to the kitchen.
Okay, and what, if anything, happened?
At that point, Juliana showed me quite a few screenshots of her dating app. I believe it was Hinge, and the people that were in the Hinge app all had similar names to me. Their names were Brendan and Brandon and Brennan. And these were people that she had matched with on the app.
And so, and how did it progress from there?
She was making quite a few jokes about it. At some point, I finished cooking and was eating. I don't believe that Juliana actually ate dinner at the same time. We talked about other unrelated things. Talked about there was some family history of alcoholism and how her family in Brazil was dealing with that. And we'd spent maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours talking about some random things, but also about her dating history. During this time, when she was talking about different people, she was described people that she was interested in, people that were taller, people that were older, and it appeared to me that she was, along with the photos, the screenshots that she had shown me of people that she had matched with, that she was basically describing me. Also, I guess when we were having this conversation, we were sitting at the island in the kitchen, and she scooted her seat closer to mine a couple times.
And so what did you do at that point?
I did not stop her advances. At some point, I told her that I was going to go upstairs, indicating that I was going to go to bed. And she said that she was tired and that she was going to do the same. A little bit of information about the upstairs of my house. Once you go upstairs, the master bedroom is to the left, and all the other bedrooms are to the right. So her bedroom, a guest bedroom, and Valerie's bedroom are to the right. When I went upstairs, I went to the left, and she also took a step towards the left with me. And we had a brief conversation there, and then she came with me into my bedroom.
Did you ever talk to her either that night or later about a continuing relationship?
We did not talk that night about continuing a relationship. We did talk about, I would say, in the next few days, I guess we spoke a little bit about the relationship. She had indicated that she was concerned that I was going to tell Christine and that she was going to be essentially fired and sent back and lose her job, which I indicated that I wasn't going to tell her.
Okay. Did you tell her anything about what had just happened and what that was?
Yes, I mean, that would be that we were having an affair. I had also indicated to her that I had previous affairs, and that really this was just an affair, and not that there would be no other relationship, that there's, that basically that this is something that I have had affairs previously, and that there's nothing that changes in mine and Christine's relationship.
Now, was Christine aware of your affair?
I don't believe she was aware of the affair between me and Juliana.
Was she aware of your previous affairs?
She was aware of at least 2 previous affairs.
Okay, and likewise, were you aware of her affairs?
Yes, I was also aware that she had affairs.
Okay, and how did the two of you manage in your relationship moving forward with those facts?
So I guess in about 2013, it was found that we had quite a few discussions. At that point, Christine was working at the private healthcare, and she would travel for work for an entire week at a time, basically. And during this time, she would not be available to come home. Her shift was literally the entire week. So we were separated a lot. My job, I wasn't in my previous position, but my job also required some travel. I spent about 6 months in Jacksonville. I spent another month in Kansas City, and I was living in New York, but I also spent some time here in the DC area. So we were both traveling quite a lot for work. I guess that was poor for our relationship at that point. We had gone to therapy. We went to couples therapy for several months. We had decided that we were going to continue our marriage.
So now back to 2022. You and Juliana were having an affair outside of the knowledge of Christine?
Yes.
And how did that look on a daily basis?
It's not the same. It's not the same all the time, but I guess it depended, I guess, a lot on Christine's work schedule. So Juliana may spend time with me and Valerie during the day instead of when I would get home from work, Juliana used to just kind of leave. She might go to her room or she might go out prior to our relationship. And afterwards, it was more like she chose to do whatever I was going to do with Valerie, whether it was going to be stay home or, like I was Valerie's soccer coach. So when I would go to soccer practice, sometimes Juliana would go, even though I wasn't interacting with her at all. Basically, she was choosing to be with me whenever she could choose to be with me.
So let's move toward the October timeframe of 2022. Did you ever create any sort of a plan with Juliana?
No, there was no plan. At this point, our relationship is maybe 6 to 8 weeks old. I think that it's an absurd line of questioning for something that is not serious, that a plan was made to get rid of my wife. That is absolutely crazy.
So with no plan, let's talk about Silver Eagle Armory.
Sure.
Okay. So how did that happen where Juliana went to you or went with you to the Silver Eagle Armory?
So it was basically one of those things where it was something that I was going to be doing outside the house. Generally, I would go to a shooting range every month, every other month, to practice before my qualifications for my job.
And how many times did you have to qualify for your job?
You have to qualify twice a year, but there's practice there's practice on the opposite quarters. So there would be, I guess, 2 trainings and 2 qualifications. And generally I would go practice prior to having one of those training sessions or qualifications at my job.
And how is it that Juliana ended up coming?
I was going to be going there anyways. She thought it would be fun to attend as well, as it was going to be out of the house. It was something that there wasn't going to be risk of being found out by Christine.
Okay, so the relationship continued into that October, December timeframe?
Yes.
Okay, so when you're in terms of training for people that go to Silver Eagle, is there any sort of training class or anything like that?
The first time you go there, they do a safety class, making sure that you understand the fundamentals of using a firearm, that you treat all firearms if they're loaded. You never point a firearm at anything that you're not willing to shoot. Things like that, making sure that you understand the safety mechanisms of a firearm, and making sure that you understand range etiquette, that the gun should always be pointed down range, it should never be pointed at another person, things like that.
And is this something that you knew through your training?
Yes, this is something that is also discussed in my trainings.
And so would this training that you're talking about at Silver Eagle be for someone who's never shot a gun before?
Yes, it would be for a kind of a beginner lesson.
Okay, and she went with you twice, correct?
Yes, she did.
Now, was there, in having her come to the range, was there any plan that she was going to back you up on some plan?
I mean, there was no plan at this point when we had gone to the range. There was none of the suspect email account. There was no FetLife account. There was no Telegram messages. None of that existed at the point that we went to the range.
Okay. Now, did FetLife or Gmail or Telegram ever exist for you?
I did not know about them until after Christine died. I didn't get to see them until after Juliana's arrest.
And you're talking about the criminal reports, the police reports, things like that?
Yes,
The things that the Commonwealth gives?
yes.
Okay. So let's move toward, so let me ask you this. There's some dates that came up recently. Some dates that came up recently relating to the FetLife account and lack of activity. Do you remember what occurred, what was going on January 13th and 14th of 2023?
Not specifically, I don't.
Okay. Do you remember a weekend in Winchester?
Yes, I do remember a weekend in
Who was
Winchester.
with you in Winchester?
I went to Winchester for work. I was going to be there for 2 days. I was going to be there for 2 days. So I had a hotel, and Juliana drove there herself, not with me. Later the evening of the first day, if I remember correctly.
And she stayed there with you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you remember what was going on at home with Christine and Valerie?
I believe my mother-in-law, Linda, was with Christine and Valerie.
Okay. That was on the 31st of January and February 1st?
I don't remember the exact date of Winchester, but
Okay. Would that be common for your mother-in-law or even your mother to come down to help out with the kids?
well, there's only Valerie, but yes, it is extremely common that the grandmothers came to visit us. Oftentimes, each of them may come almost as every 4 to 6 weeks, and they may spend between 5 and 10 days. As I had said before, Valerie was the only grandchild of both sides of the grandparents, and so there was quite a lot of support from the grandparents with Valerie.
Okay. Now, January 13th and January 14th, was that one of those days when someone was visiting? Or that weekend?
I mean, they visited frequently, but I don't remember specifically that they visited that weekend.
Okay. Now, let's talk about February 24th. Can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what were you doing that morning? What was your plan for the day with work or with the family or?
Sure. February 23rd is my birthday, and the evening I was planning to drive to New York with Valerie. My friends in New York had planned a birthday party for me in New York.
And I'm sorry, the 23rd was your birthday. Are you talking about the next day?
The previous day.
Previous day of 23rd?
So I believe February 23rd was a Thursday, which was
Right.
my 38th birthday, and the
Okay.
24th was the day that,
Okay. And my question was, when you were talking about going up, your friends were having a party. You're talking about the 24th?
well, yes, because that was Friday, and I had to work on that Friday still, so I was going to go to New York in the evening.
Okay, so the 24th, your day was planned, and what did you fill your day with in terms of your plan?
So, but in terms of the day was an important day for me at work as well. There was a important meeting for one of my cases. There was going to be a undercover operation for one of my cases, for the undercover operation, which was going to take place most likely on Tuesday. So we were going to go over all the documentation and the plan for the operation on Tuesday, the following week.
Okay. Now, so what did that mean in terms of your normal waking up or any other usual habits?
I woke up a little bit earlier that day. I was planning to get to my office, which is in Vienna, a little bit earlier so that I could set up the conference room, have my documents ready, have my presentation ready, have the document for the operation available so that it could be signed off by management.
Okay. And so what time did you wake up that morning?
I believe I woke up 6:30.
Okay. And do you remember whether or not Christine was up?
Christine I had seen had seemed to be awake and on her cell phone when I was getting ready and taking a shower to get ready for work.
Okay. Now, did you have any sort of interaction with her at that time?
Yes, she was aware that I had this meeting that day. She wished me luck. She said that she would talk to me before I headed to New York with Valerie. Told me she loved me and have a good day.
Okay. So you carried on with your morning. What did that entail?
I went downstairs and got my work laptop out of the basement. My work from home space at that time was in the basement. I have a desk. I have a desk down there. It's because it's quiet. So I got my work stuff ready. I made sure that I had all of my equipment. Getting ready on a typical day would mean that I need to have my credentials, which includes my badge, my firearm, my holster, my handcuffs, two magazines, a belt clip badge, my work cell phone, and then generally I would also have my personal cell phone, my wallet, and my keys, which includes to my government vehicle.
And so you had a holster that would hold the gun?
Yes,
And to what side was that holster?
it's on the right because I'm right-handed.
Okay. And so presumably you're putting it in the right and the gun comes out of it on the right side?
Correct.
Okay. Now, who else was up and what else was going on in the house that you were involved with?
I know Juliana was downstairs when I came upstairs from getting my work stuff out, my work laptop out of the basement. I don't remember exactly what she was doing. I think she might have been getting stuff ready in the kitchen.
Let me just stop you right there. Prior to that time, which would be February 24th, had you ever taken Christine's laptop or taken her phone out of a bag near the door?
No, I don't take her laptop. I have no reason to use her laptop. I don't have access to her laptop. It's not a password that I know. I have my own work laptop. I have my own home desktop. I have my own actually have 2 cell phones. I have a personal cell phone and a work cell phone. Our devices were completely separate.
And so, in terms of, that's fine. In terms of the idea of the laptop, where it would be on a regular basis, do you have a recollection of where she would put her laptop?
Christine kept her laptop actually in several places. Sometimes it is by the front door when she gets home. She would have a backpack, and she would bring the backpack and drop it off, and generally go visit Valerie and our dog and me. But usually she would go upstairs and she would bring her backpack with her, and her desk is in the sitting area of our master bedroom. So if you were to go into the master bedroom, you can kind of either go left or right, and to the left is the sitting area, which is where Christine does her work and has her desk and her file and has her files for her job. And if you went to the right, it would be where the master bedroom is, and for a little bit further, the master bathroom. But she didn't also only keep her laptop at her desk. I would say the majority of her use would be sitting in bed with her back against the headboard, while she had TV on or something like that. And when she would be done, she might put the laptop in between her nightstand and the bed, or on the nightstand itself, or back on her desk, generally at night.
And so, and what about her phone? Where would there be a particular place where she might leave her phone?
I mean, her phone was basically always connected to her. Her phone wasn't really away from her basically ever. I mean, she would keep it in her pocket.
So following up on the discussion we had about a plan, was there ever any time, and I think you indicated that you never went and grabbed her laptop or whatever, was there ever any time you observed Juliana going to grab her laptop or her phone?
I never observed Juliana grab her laptop or her phone. Juliana also has her own laptop and phone.
Now, what, if anything, was Juliana and what were Juliana and Valerie supposed to be doing on February 24th?
Christine had scheduled for Valerie and Juliana to go to the zoo, at the main zoo in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Did you have any role in that?
I didn't have any role in planning the trip. I was aware of the trip.
And how did you become aware of the trip?
Christine had told me that that was something they were going to do.
Okay, so you never kind of forced that on her for the 24th?
No, it was also written on our calendar that was shown earlier. Christine had written it on the calendar. She had also written it on Juliana's work schedule in her au pair book.
Now, what, if anything, did you know about the plan for that day for them?
I knew that they were planning to go in the morning. I don't recall if I knew what time they were supposed to go, but I knew they were going in the morning, and I knew that when I saw Juliana in the morning, that's what she was working on doing, was getting Valerie ready. But Juliana had actually asked me to go get Valerie from upstairs. At some point in the morning, I heard Valerie's feet, meaning that she got out of her bed and pounded down the hallway and ran into my room.
Okay.
And so Juliana had asked me to get Valerie because Valerie wasn't in her room to start getting her ready. So I got Valerie out of my bed, which happened after I had finished getting my equipment ready.
And did you see Christine there?
Yes, when I had gone back upstairs, Christine was there, and she was sitting up. She was sitting up in bed. She had the blanket over her lap. She had both her laptop and her cell phone.
Okay, and what, if anything, did, so when you took Valerie, where did you take her in order to?
Valerie was sleepy, so when I picked her up, she was still kind of limp, and I carried her downstairs to Juliana, and Juliana got her, kind of woke her up gently and changed her out of pajamas and into her clothes for the day.
Okay, did you take any part in getting ready, get sandwiches ready, get anything like that ready?
No, I was getting ready. I was getting ready to leave myself. I wasn't.
What time-
Besides collecting Valerie, I wasn't doing anything to help them get ready for the day.
What time did you get out of the house that day? Do you have any recollection?
Roughly 7.
Okay,
A couple minutes
and-
after 7.
Would that be a usual time for you to leave?
I would say a more usual time for me to leave is roughly 7:30.
Okay. And in this instance, you were going earlier for what reason?
I was going earlier to just make sure that I had plenty of time in Vienna to get my presentation ready and have the conference room ready for when management was going to inspect my operation and documents for the operation that was supposed to happen on Tuesday.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you said Vienna. Why Vienna?
Vienna is where my office is. We have a couple offices, but that's the one that I'm stationed out of.
That's the home office for you?
Yes, that's my home office. The main office is in Washington, D.C., but this is one of the satellite offices, and that's the one that I work out of.
And what time was that meeting set for?
It was set for 9:30.
Okay, so you left at 7, for what reason?
I left at 7. I was going to go get breakfast, and after breakfast, I was going to get on the 267 toll road and head towards my office.
Okay, and where did you end up going to breakfast that morning?
I went to McDonald's for breakfast.
Okay, is that a common occurrence for you?
I would say that I occasionally go to McDonald's, but I often pick up breakfast on my way to work. Not necessarily McDonald's. Sometimes it's bagel places or place to get an egg sandwich.
Okay.
Things like that.
So it's not uncommon. You don't usually make your breakfast at home?
On the weekend, I usually make a bigger breakfast for everyone. But no, normally I don't make breakfast for myself before work.
So when you went to McDonald's, you saw the video that the Commonwealth showed of you driving up to the drive-through,
Yes.
and it looks as though, well, it appears you go past the drive-through at one point. Is that correct?
I did. I circled the drive-through.
What was the reason for that?
The McDonald's app has a QR code so that you get reward points and you can use the deals that you get. And when I initially opened it, it didn't provide me with my code. And that's why I was like blocking the drive-through. And so then I basically just got back in line once the code came up.
Okay, and so.
It was pretty quick.
And you had that app on your phone at that time?
I've had the McDonald's app for several years.
Okay. Now, when you, so I'm sorry, explain to me a little bit about that app. I'm not familiar with it.
You can order directly from there, but that's generally not what I do, because then the food gets made before you get there. So normally, I just open up the QR code section, and you can look at the deals, and the deals tell you, you know, you can get a free hash brown with your breakfast, and you can load that, or you can get a orange juice or coffee with it, and then you'll get reward points, and you can use the reward points to get free food too. So
Okay.
it's kind of a loyalty app that's you would find for many restaurants.
And so, when it didn't work the first time you came back around,
Yeah.
and did it work?
Yes. Then my QR code came up, and I went to order.
Okay, so when we see you in your work vehicle with your sunglasses on, you got your food after that?
Yes.
Okay, and then what did you do?
I pulled straight forward. The McDonald's, the shopping center that the McDonald's is in, the McDonald's is kind of a standalone building. But basically you cross over the road. It's a road in the parking lot. You cross over the road, it's only, it's a
You're watching a critical moment in the Commonwealth case against Brendan Banfield. The Virginia husband accused of murdering his family's au pair has taken the stand in his own defense. Banfield is facing first-degree murder charges, and this is a high-stakes move. Jurors are now hearing directly from him about what happened the night she died, and whether this was, as prosecutors say, a calculated killing, or, as the defense suggests, something far more complicated. Now, on the stand, Banfield is being pressed about his relationship with the au pair, his behavior in the hours before her death, and the series of messages and searches that prosecutors argue reveal motive and intent. The jury is watching his demeanor closely, his tone, his body language, and how he handles cross-examination could make or break this case. We're expecting thorough questioning from the prosecutors, zeroing in on gaps and contradictions between what Banfield told investigators then and what he's telling this jury now. The stakes could not be higher. If jurors don't believe him, this testimony could do more damage than good. Court is in session. Banfield remains on the stand, and all eyes are on how he holds up under cross. We'll continue to monitor every development inside the courtroom and bring you the key exchanges as they happen. Now back to the courtroom.
What, if anything, you went to the restroom, so what happened then?
As I was finishing up in the restroom, I received a call from Juliana.
And without saying what she said, what did you do?
I left the restroom and went back to my car quickly.
And was she alarmed at the time?
She sounded that she was very stressed.
Okay, and did you tell her that you were coming back?
I did not tell her that I was coming back on that original phone call. On the original phone call, I told her that I was going to call Christine.
Okay, and did you do that?
I did try to call Christine, but I did not reach her.
Okay, and so in terms of your communications with Christine, was that unusual for her to not pick up the phone?
I wouldn't say that it's unusual for Christine not to pick up the phone, but I would say it's unusual that her phone would go directly to voicemail. Many times if I would call her, she could be busy at work, but her phone would probably be on silent, and therefore it would ring and then go to voicemail. And then she might text me or call me back and let me know when she can call me back. But it was unusual that her phone went directly to voicemail.
Okay. Now, and so what did that cause you to do?
I believe I tried to call Christine again, of which it went to voicemail straight again. After that, I called Juliana back, and I told Juliana not to go in the house, and that I was going to return to the house.
Okay. And did you do that?
I did.
How long did it take you to think to get back to the house?
10 minutes, 11 minutes, 12 minutes, hard to say.
How long would it normally take?
I guess it depends on, there's a couple traffic lights. 8 to 12 minutes.
Were you, at that point, were you rushing? Were you?
Objection leading.
What if, at that point, how was it that you were proceeding back to the house after the two phone calls that Christine didn't answer and the phone calls you received from Juliana?
I started driving quickly back to the house. I took the most direct route back to the house.
Okay. Now, if I can just stop you right there. Was there any plan for how something would happen with Juliana on February 24th?
There was no plan with Juliana on February 24th. As far as I knew, Juliana was going to be going to the zoo with Valerie, and Christine had just taken off from work, and I understood that she was going to be home, but I didn't know anything else at that point. I was more concerned with my day of what I had to do at my job.
Prior to leaving the house, did you do anything with anyone's devices other than your own?
I didn't touch anyone else's devices that I remember that morning. I was just getting ready for work.
Okay. Specifically, did you touch Christine's devices, either of those?
No, I did not touch her devices.
Meaning the laptop and the phone?
No, I did not touch her devices.
Mr. Carroll, is this a good time, or do you have more questions?
May I just look one
Sure,
second,
sure.
Judge? Judge, this might be a good break.
Okay, this is a good break. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, since it is 5 o'clock right now, so we'll go ahead and take our evening break. Please do not discuss the case with anybody. Don't do any outside research. I understand that everybody is available for Friday. Again, I'm sorry that I have to thank you for being flexible. I'm sorry that we have to keep changing things. I know somebody can't get here until around 9:30. We'll wait for you whenever you can get here, and we will stop at 4:30 on the dot for somebody who needs to leave as well, okay? So that'll be the Friday schedule, okay? All right, have a good evening. Mr. Banfield, since you're in the middle of your testimony, you can't discuss your testimony with anybody at this time. That includes your attorney, okay?
Okay.
All right, you can have a seat back with your attorney. Is there any other matters for this evening?
Judge,
Yes.
if I may,
Yes.
I was remiss in not asking, is Mr. Miller still subject
Is
to
Mr. Miller still
recall by?
subject to recall? Detective Miller, is he still subject to recall?
Did I do that?
Yeah.
Yes, you did, but that's okay. If you're,
I don't plan on calling him, Judge.
okay, so he can be released then.
Thank
Detective
you.
Miller can
And then,
be
as I
released.
had indicated this morning, I would like to request that Detective Stephen Augustine be permitted to watch the testimony for his expert.
Okay. Any objection to that?
No objection.
Okay, so we'll take care of that tomorrow. And how about Friday morning at 9:30, finish up the jury instructions. We don't have much left. so-
Judge, we should be able to do it, I anticipate we can do it at the end of tomorrow.
Okay, do you want to do the jury instructions at the end of tomorrow? It's just, I mean, we only have basically the charging instructions left and the waterfalls.
We should be able to do it.
Okay, and there's just one thing with that while I have you here, because I know it's only, you have the 2 charging instructions for aggravated murder, okay?
Yes.
But for the record, I have 4 counts.
You do.
So are we going to select like
We
count
are.
1 and count 3, or count 2 and count 4?
We are.
All right, just as long as I can get that on the record, I would appreciate that,
Once-
just to clean it up.
Once this has concluded, then we will
Perfect.
be able to let Your Honor know how we elect to
Okay.
proceed with the charges.
Excellent, that's great. Okay, so we'll see you in the morning then at 10 a.m., okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
The other 2 suitcases you will hear were recovered in the days that followed. The suitcases, it turns out, belonged to the defendant and her husband, the victim. It was their matching luggage. Within the suitcases, within these 3 suitcases, were the deceased's cut-up body. The first suitcase contained the deceased's legs from the knees down. They were wrapped in plastic trash bags, like garbage, with yellow ties. The trash bags were also found in the second and third suitcases, but listen when they're described, because in the second and third suitcases, there were larger trash bags, large industrial-type trash bags. And those are important, so you want to listen when you hear about them. These large trash bags from the second and third suitcase, again, that contain the deceased remains, when compared to trash bags used only weeks later when the defendant packed Williams' clothing into trash bags to move out of that Woodbridge apartment, they match. You will hear evidence that when the comparison was done between those trash bags, and there are markings that are similar, that are evident of the production line when the bags were manufactured. And these markings, you will hear, indicate that they were manufactured on the same day, within a very, very close proximity of each other, a very, very short time frame. Also inside one of the suitcases, specifically the second one, was a blanket. And it was a distinctive blanket. It was a medical blanket. And it was labeled HCSC Corporation, which is a linen service that you will hear provides medical linens to many hospitals and medical facilities in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Maryland. But one of the medical practices that subscribes to HCSC and subscribes to this particular blanket was the practice where defendant worked in Morristown. The evidence will show that the defendant had many of these blankets in her apartment. The 39-year-old husband of the defendant, father of her 2 children, was shot at least 2 times, once in the head and once in the chest, by a .38 caliber gun. The evidence will show that on April 26, 2004, only 2 days before the closing that I just told you about, 2 days before, the defendant purchased such a gun of a make and model absolutely consistent with what killed her husband. But there is so much more. There's so much more that you will see from the evidence of what this defendant did in both the days before William's disappearance and after. And I'm going to review all of this evidence with you in more detail in just a few minutes. But I want to digress for just one moment. As you may have sensed from this short summary, the evidence that you will hear in this case will be almost completely circumstantial. There will be no witness that comes to the witness stand and tells you, I saw her do it. But please make no mistake, this circumstantial evidence will allow you to clearly judge and will lead you directly and absolutely to Melanie McGuire. The evidence that you will hear during this trial will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Melanie McGuire participated in killing her husband, participated in cutting him up, and in all of the other charges that she stands accused of. Now, I use the word participated because it is likely that she had help with certain parts of this horrible crime. Under New Jersey law, as Judge DeVisa will instruct you on far more eloquently than I, you will hear that whether she did pull the trigger herself or helped it or commissioned for it to be done, it doesn't matter. She is guilty just the same. And while certain facts may never come to light, because again, murder is not an act that's committed in front of an audience, it will be the evidence and not the drama, not emotion, not banter between the attorneys or illogical assertions, but the evidence that will lead you and paint a very clear picture of this defendant's guilt. Now, what I want to do is I want to go back to talking about the evidence. I want to review it with you. Now, the case you're going to hear is long, and you're going to hear from many witnesses who are going to give you small little pieces of the puzzle. During the trial, there will be times when you will hear testimony from a witness and you'll be sitting in your chair thinking, gee, how does this fit in? Why is this important? The evidence additionally may not be presented to you in perfect order, and that's due to scheduling issues, but please rest assured, all of the evidence that will be presented to you has meaning and purpose. And when you draw from them the rational, logical conclusions from them, they will compel you right to the ugly truth in this case, that Melanie McGuire killed her husband, William. At the end of all of the testimony in the case, I'll again be able to speak with you during summations, and I'll explain the significance and help you put together all the facts that you heard. After summations, Judge DeVisa will explain the law that you must apply to the facts, and then you and the other jurors will go to a room somewhere in this courthouse and you'll decide the case. So now, I've shared with you a little bit about how William was found. I want to back up now and tell you what was going on before that. As I said, the defendant was having an affair. Please know she is not on trial for having an affair, and whether you approve of such or not, it doesn't make her guilty of murder. The reason you're hearing about the affair is because it does give you insight. It gives us all insight into her feelings for her husband. Words are just words, but please keep your attention focused on her actions, on all of her actions. Actions speak much louder than words, especially in this case. You'll meet the man that she was in love with, Dr. Brad Miller. The affair had started when defendant was pregnant with William's youngest child. It continued after Billy was killed and ended only shortly before the defendant's arrest on this case. You'll learn a bit about the defendant. She worked as a nurse at Reproductive Medical Associates of New Jersey, RMA for short. RMA doctors are reproductive endocrinologists or fertility specialists. They help people get pregnant. Defendant was known to be a very hardworking nurse, smart, really good at her job. But enter her rationalizations. The evidence will show that she complained about her husband to friends and to coworkers. She made Billy out to be the bad guy. Bill McGuire had been in the Navy for several years. He had a short, failed marriage before he married the defendant. He was working at NJIT as a computer technician. On the side, he had a computer consulting business with one of his friends who you'll meet. And in addition, for extra cash, he worked as a professor. He taught some courses at NJIT as well. Did everyone love him? I'm sure not, because few people are loved by everyone, but he was a regular guy. You'll hear that he loved and adored his 2 young sons. He enjoyed red wine. He had a good sense of humor. He liked to gamble in Atlantic City. He was a regular guy. Billy had 2 sisters, Cindy Lagash and Nancy Taylor, and unfortunately, they didn't have the happiest of childhoods. Keep that in mind, because later you're going to hear during the course of the trial how the defendant uses that to her advantage. But let's get back to the defendant. In April of 2004, the defendant emails a friend of hers named Jim Finn, complaining about Billy, and through a series of emails that you will see and phone calls that Jim Finn will tell you about, she starts telling him that she wants to purchase a gun. She wants information about how to purchase a gun because she knows Jim Finn has an affinity for guns, so she knows he would have that information. Jim Finn will tell you that she wanted the gun for herself. She was alleging that her husband, Billy, had been acting weird, and she was nervous. You'll see the email where Jim Finn asks her, "Are you safe?" Mr. Finn, who has always, since nursing school, had a soft spot for a defendant, willingly complied and explained in phone calls that he will tell you about how easy it is to get a gun in Pennsylvania if you can show proof of Pennsylvania residency. You'll hear that at the time, the defendant had a Pennsylvania driver's license using her aunt's address. Throughout several dates in April, and around the same time that these conversations are going on with Mr. Finn, searches are being done on the McGuire's home computer. The searches included search phrases such as how to commit a murder, how to purchase a gun illegally, undetectable poisons, and others that you'll hear about. Now keep these in mind. I'm going to return to them in just a minute. On April 26th, again 2 days before the closing, defendant drives over to Palmer Township, which is just outside of Easton, Pennsylvania, where she purchases a gun. You'll meet the gun shop owner. His name is John Kasha. He's the owner of John's Gun Shop. Mr. Kasha will come in and he'll tell you he remembers that the nurse came in, and he remembered because she was so pretty and she was well dressed. You'll see the forms that she filled out using her real name, but her aunt's address, the address that's now on her Pennsylvania license, and a fake work address. And using that Pennsylvania driver's license as identification, this defendant walked out of that gun shop on April 26, 2004, 2 days before the closing, with a Taurus .38 caliber revolver. Now, Taurus is a brand name, just like Smith & Wesson. But that's important because guns are manufactured in such a way that markings called lands and grooves are left on bullets that are fired through them. Now let's go back to the gun shop. She also purchased another item, an item for $9.95, and Mr. Kasha will explain to you there were all but 2 items, only 2 items in the gun shop that sold for $9.95. And they were bullets for a .38 caliber gun. Ultramax brand, he had 2 types available, either round nose or wad cutter. Incidentally, the bullets that were removed from Billy's dead body, from his remains that were in the suitcases, those bullets had lands and grooves consistent with a handful of manufacturers, but one of those manufacturers is Taurus. The bullets that killed Billy were .38 caliber wad cutter bullets. The gun and the bullets that she purchased that day in John's gun shop is absolutely consistent with what killed this victim. Now, did she go back and did she tell her pal John, "Yeah, I went and I bought a gun"? No, she didn't tell him. Not until much later. Not until nearly a year later, when you'll hear the police were interviewing her family and friends. But then suddenly, the gun wasn't because she was nervous. The gun wasn't because Billy was acting weird. The story changed. And you'll hear that then she claimed she bought the gun for Billy. They had decided they were going to get a gun because they were moving to a rural area and wanted one. Absolutely inconsistent with the discussions and the emails you'll see between she and Jim Finn. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, she had to tell Mr. Finn this excuse because in the months that had passed, she had used the excuse of moving to a rural area and purchasing a gun to explain to others why she purchased the gun. And this is but one example that you will see of excuses that this defendant makes in attempts to explain to her friends and family the very, very incriminating evidence that proves her guilty. You'll see the emails. Jim Finn will tell you about the phone calls. She bought the gun and the bullets. The gun and the bullets are absolutely consistent with what killed him. Absolutely consistent with what was recovered from William's body and the markings on them. Now let's go back to those computer searches. The searches included, again, how to commit a murder, murder and suicide, undetectable poisons, and more. And with undetectable poisons, there were lots of substances that were searched for. But there's one that's very important in this case, and that's chloral hydrate. Chloral hydrate is a substance that some of you may have heard of. It used to be used in something called a Mickey Finn. In the old movies, slipped him a Mickey. It's a sedative. It's a sedative that when added to alcohol or even on its own, it has little pharmacological value today, but even on its own, this powerful sedative can make a person pass out. Still, a higher dosage can make someone go into a coma. Higher still can be lethal. The computer searches show that the searcher from the McGuire's home computer was looking at this on April 26, 2004. The searcher, after reading about chloral hydrate, next went to a Walgreens website. And remember, there's only 2 adults that are living in that Woodbridge apartment, and that's the defendant and the victim. On April 28th, the morning of the closing, defendant dropped her children off at daycare at Kindercastle in Metuchen. Approximately 10 minutes after she dropped her children off, there was a prescription brought into the Walgreens that is less than a 3-minute drive from that Kindercastle. The prescription was under the patient name Tiffany Bain. The evidence will show that Tiffany Bain was a patient at RMA, where the defendant could have easily accessed Tiffany Bain's name and address. The prescription was on an RMA prescription pad, signed allegedly by Dr. Brad Miller. However, Dr. Miller says he didn't sign it, and a handwriting expert agrees. Chloral hydrate, according to the head partner at RMA, has no use in reproductive medicine. Tiffany Bain will tell you she has never been to that Walgreens. Now, Tiffany Bain did not fill that prescription, but somebody did. You will learn that the defendant had access to RMA prescription pads, and as a nurse there, she had filled out and signed many a prescription for Dr. Miller. So on April 28th, 2004, hours after the children are dropped off at daycare and after that prescription for chloral hydrate is filled at that Walgreens, the house closing goes through. Interestingly, the defendant had told Dr. Miller that the closing wasn't going to go through. She didn't think it was going to happen, but in fact it did. There was a last-minute problem with an appraisal, the associated stress that goes along with the biggest purchase of your life, but it went through, and the move was set for that weekend, and Billy had arranged for friends to help. Notably, she was speaking to her lover, Dr. Miller, several times throughout the day of the closing. And after she tells him that the closing went through and he expresses his disbelief, she tells him not to worry. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay. According to what defendant later told her friends and family, and then what she told the Middlesex County Family Court, and eventually told the Virginia Beach Police, sometime that night, from the 28th into the 29th, she alleges that she and Billy got into a fight. She alleges that Billy got physically violent for the first time and hit the defendant and shoved a dryer sheet, like one of those bounce dryer sheets, into her mouth. Defendant claims she hid in the bathroom while she could, with one of her children, and could hear her husband rummaging through the apartment, and then he left. saying words to the effect of, "You're going to be the reason that my children don't know their father." That's what she alleges. However, there is no proof, there is no evidence of any kind that William McGuire ever left that apartment in Woodbridge that night of his own volition. Virginia Beach detectives learned that on the night of the 29th into the 30th, technically it was the 30th because now it's a little bit after midnight, at about 12:40 a.m., William's car was captured on a security video parking at the Flamingo Hotel in Atlantic City. Now, I want to fast forward, and I'm going to come back to this, I assure you, but I want to fast forward. It's almost a month after William is gone, almost a month later, when the defendant, after hearing through media accounts that the police had this security video, it was in the paper with the articles that surrounded the deceased being identified, that the police had the security video from the Flamingo. And she admitted to others in her typical fashion of an excuse that it was her that was on the tape putting William's car at the Flamingo Hotel. Now, just so you have a time reference, Billy's body wasn't identified in Virginia until May 22nd, 2004. The defendant was officially notified by police that Billy was dead on May 26th, 2004, when the case was in the papers in New Jersey. It was then, again, almost a month later, after a month after Bill's disappearance, that she starts making excuses for this very incriminating piece of evidence that she believed existed. She believed there was a videotape at the Flamingo, and she told her friends, "It's me in the video." And I'll get back to that explanation in a minute. But unfortunately, the security video that shows William's car pulling into the Flamingo Motel doesn't show who's driving it. You see the car pulling in. Now, perhaps her friends and family, hearing about it a month later, didn't remember what it was she was doing in those days following Billy's disappearance. Maybe they didn't remember, but you won't, ladies and gentlemen, you won't forget, because the evidence is going to be right in front of you. The evidence will show that on April 29th, remember this is allegedly the morning after the fight, the day after the closing, the evidence will show that defendant told friends and family she went to family court to get a restraining order from Billy, but left because the court was too crowded. We can see from her phone records that on the 29th she started contacting attorneys, and we know that approximately then she checked into the Red Roof Inn, which is a motel in Metuchen, where you could park your car and go right into your room from the parking lot. There's no hallways, there's no elevators where you're going to run into somebody. She told her friends and family at the time that she was staying at the Red Roof Inn because she was afraid of her husband and she wanted to be closer to family court. It was more convenient to be near family court here in Middlesex County than staying with her parents in Barnegat. I'm going to come back to that as well. Several weeks later now, remember the time passage, after William's murder becomes public, she admits that during the overnight of the 29th into the 30th, she went to Atlantic City in her SUV, which is a Nissan Pathfinder, to see where he was. Again, during the daytime of the 29th, she alleged she went to family court but left because it was too crowded. We have a restraining order during the day, and now allegedly she's looking for him in Atlantic City at night. And according to her, she didn't know where he was, or even if he was in Atlantic City. But she goes down there after midnight looking for him and doesn't find him, but just happens to find his car. In the all of Atlantic City, not knowing where he was, she claims she just happened to find his car. And according to defendant, she decided at that time she would play a college-like joke on him and move his car to where he wouldn't find it. She explained, and this is important, keep this in mind, she found his cell phones in his car and threw them out. But her story gets even better. She says that after moving his car, she forgot where she left hers, and she was tired. so she decided to take a cab from Atlantic City back to the Woodbridge train station. After sleeping on the way, she felt better, so she claimed she took yet another cab from the Woodbridge train station back to Atlantic City, where allegedly she located her car and drove home. A few interesting facts are going to be presented to you on this. First, although both defendant and Billy had Easy Pass in their cars and they lived in Woodbridge, right near the Garden State Parkway, there are no Easy Pass hits for either car going into Atlantic City that night. Second, when you watch the Flamingo Motel security tape, you will see, as did the FBI, an SUV consistent with a Nissan Pathfinder pull up to the parking area of the Flamingo Motel just minutes after we see Billy's car pull in. And we know who's driving Billy's car. We know who's driving because she admits it. To be clear, Billy's car pulls in, a few minutes pass, and another vehicle, an SUV consistent with a Nissan Pathfinder that we know the defendant drives, consistent with a Nissan Pathfinder, pulls up. You see in the tape on that Pathfinder, the brake lights engage, indicating it stopped, and then it continues on. It's a time-lapse tape, so it's not continuous. But you will see that it is all consistent with believing that someone went down to Atlantic City with this defendant and brought her back up to Middlesex County after she planted William's car at the Flamingo Motel. After putting Billy's car at the Flamingo Hotel, she returns to Middlesex County, and later that same day, now we're on April 30th. Remember, she parks the car just after midnight on the 30th. Now, hours later, to the business hours now of the 30th, she's in Middlesex County Family Court getting a restraining order. She's getting a restraining order to protect her from her husband, who clearly, and excuse me, it's just a lot of talking, who clearly must have been dead or incapacitated at the time. You will hear her tell the family court judge the story of the dryer sheet. You will hear and see the paperwork that she filled out where defendant tells the judge, "No one to my knowledge has a gun." And she further says she doesn't know where her husband is when asked. No one to her knowledge has a gun. Yet that's April 30th, 4 days after she purchased one herself in Palmer Township, Pennsylvania. And she doesn't know where her husband is. Yet, hours before, at just after midnight, she allegedly found his car in Atlantic City. But you don't hear her say, "I know he's in Atlantic City." You won't hear that. She doesn't say that, ladies and gentlemen, because the real reason for being in family court, as the evidence will show, the real reason is not to get a restraining order. The real reason is to create a defense. She's looking for people to believe, "I couldn't have killed him because look, here I am getting a restraining order and I'm contacting attorneys to get a divorce. But follow the evidence. Keep your eyes on her actions. April 30th was a Friday. She stays in the Red Roof Inn. She stays in that motel until Sunday, paying for the room with cash. Remember, the excuse for being in the motel is to be closer to court, so it would be more convenient. But now it's Saturday and Sunday, and the court here in Middlesex County is closed. Her parents live approximately 45 minutes away in Barnegat, and her mother is taking care of the children. Grandma has had the kids throughout these last few days. Yet, instead of staying with her parents, she chooses, right after this horrible change of life, remember what we know she alleges she was going through, going from a marriage and a new home to a divorce and no home. Allegedly so scared of her husband that she's getting a restraining order, yet she chooses to stay at the Red Roof Inn rather than with her parents, who you will hear she is extremely close with. She leaves her children with her parents and stays at this motel. and she's not there to hook up with her boyfriend. You will hear that he can't spend that much time with her over that weekend. You see, he has house guests. He's on duty that weekend, he's working, and he has patients to see. He has a family, he has a wife, and he has children, and he goes home at night. On the morning of May 1st, 2004, Dr. Miller, you'll hear, stopped in at the motel very early in the morning on his way to work. They're in contact throughout the weekend. He's worrying about her, but again, he had patients to see and he has those house guests. On May 1st, into the early morning hours of May 2nd, at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, there is yet another trip by the defendant to Atlantic City. She doesn't tell Dr. Miller about this trip either, not for quite some time. However, when she does admit to taking this trip, she tells him she didn't go alone. This trip, she went with Michael Caporero, her stepfather, the man who raised her from when she was a small child. Now, what do we know about this second midnight run to Atlantic City? Well, for one thing, this time, there's an easy pass hit on the Atlantic City Expressway. However, in June, when the defendant receives her Easy Pass bill, you will hear that she calls Easy Pass customer service, and she protests this 35-cent charge, telling customer service, "I wasn't there." Customer service says, "The toll stays." And you'll hear that sometime after that, knowing now that it's on her Easy Pass bill, now come the excuses again. She went down to Atlantic City with her stepfather to see where Billy is. An excuse. An excuse again for incriminating evidence of her guilt. But the key to these trips to Atlantic City may lie in what was found in Billy's car. Billy's BlackBerry and work computer were in the trunk. There was a small vial of chloral hydrate in the glove compartment. Pamphlets for Atlantic City and Virginia were on the front seat, but by far, the most significant evidence that was recovered from the car was recovered from the vacuumings of the driver's side rug in the front and of the passenger side rug in the front. You see, vacuumings pick up dirt in the rug and whatever may have been transferred there from the bottom of the shoes of persons using the car. We know who last used the car, the defendant. In those vacuumings, our New Jersey State Police lab found tiny pieces of human tissue. DNA tells us that these tiny pieces of flesh were once part of William McGuire. You'll hear from a Virginia medical examiner, Dr. Wendy Gunther, who will tell you about her examination of William's remains. William's legs were cut off at the knees. William's torso was cut from his pelvic area below his ribs, but above his hips. From the knees down were in the first suitcase. From the waist up, in one continuous piece, was his torso in the second suitcase. And his pelvic area and thighs, clothed only in underwear, in men's briefs, were in the last suitcase that was recovered. Please listen when these suitcases are described for you, and listen for the amount of blood recovered in the suitcases, because we're going to discuss that on summation. You'll hear from Dr. Steve Sims. Dr. Sims is a tool mark expert specializing in tool marks on bone. He will tell you that in his opinion, at least 2 instruments were used to cut up William McGuire. First, a sharp instrument like a knife, and second, a saw, probably a reciprocating saw through the bone. The evidence of the flesh in the car tells you what was on the bottom of the shoes of someone in that car, whose shoes were in contact with William's cut-up body, and more likely with the floor of the room that William's body was cut up in. And as we've discussed by her own admission, it is this defendant that was last in William's car. On May 4th, the evidence will show that in the morning hours, around 9 a.m., defendant places herself in Delaware on the Delaware side of the Delaware Memorial Bridge, claiming she was furniture shopping. Yes, according to her, she was furniture shopping. Her husband allegedly just left her. Her lease is up on the apartment because remember they were due to move to go into the new house. She's staying now with her parents, but according to her, she's furniture shopping. And once again, this wasn't told to Dr. Miller at the time that she did it. It was long after. An excuse to be in Delaware because perhaps she feared a picture from the toll or a picture from the bridge, but there is none. We just have defendant's admission in Delaware, furniture shopping on the morning of May 4th. Now, the evidence will show, if you don't remember it from geography class, that Delaware is between New Jersey and Virginia, where the Chesapeake Bay is and where Billy's body was recovered. Furniture shopping in Delaware on the 4th. The first suitcase is recovered on the 5th. The defendant never moved into the Warren County home that they purchased. She sold it. And after staying for a while with her parents, she moved into an apartment. In preparing to move out of the apartment that she had shared with her husband, only a few weeks after the disappearance, because remember the lease is up, they're planning to move, she packs his belongings, William's clothing, in these large industrial type trash bags. She packed them before she was officially notified that the deceased was dead by police. She finds out, officially finds out, I should say, that he's dead just before Memorial Day, and the move is Memorial Day weekend. On moving day, she has friends do the move. She doesn't attend. But one of those friends is a gentleman named Justin Marrero. Justin Marrero is the cousin of one of defendant's best friends, Celine Trevisos. Justin assisted with the move, and seeing the bags of clothing that were just going to be thrown out, he took them home with him. You will hear that detectives went and interviewed Justin Marrero, and they recovered the trash bags that she packed William's clothing in. And those are the trash bags that, when compared to the large trash bags in the second and third suitcase, those are the trash bags that match in markings. And you will hear a lot about the markings and how trash bags are made. Only one other bag, let me back up for a minute. There were other bags recovered during searches that I'll tell you about in a minute. There were many other trash bags that were recovered in the defendant's home, in the home of her parents, yet there was only one other bag that was found that matched in markings both the bags used to hold Billy's cut-up body and those that were that the defendant used to pack William's clothing in, and that one other bag was found in Michael Caporero's garage, in her parents' garage. And remember, the defendant had lived with her parents for a period of time after moving out of that Woodbridge apartment. But there is more. I want to digress and talk to you about some of the evidence specifically. This case was originally investigated by Virginia Beach Police Department. Months later, the investigation was transferred up here to New Jersey, where it's been investigated by the New Jersey State Police Major Crime Unit and the Division of Criminal Justice. You'll hear that detectives, using what they knew at the time, some of what I've described, but certainly not all, they went to a judge and they got permission to tap her phones and her parents' phones. You will hear some of those calls. Now, much of what you hear will be portions rather than the whole call. These edits were done with the court's guidance, and you will hear the defendant herself talk about much of what I've just described. Other witnesses will testify as to what defendant told them, and certainly others will tell you what they heard, saw, or smelled. But again, no one will say they saw her do it. And you will hear calls. When you hear these portions of calls, much as you would expect, you will hear the defendant vehemently denying any involvement. Again, ladies and gentlemen, look past her words and look at her actions. Look past the excuses. The search warrants of her home, the defendant's home, and her parents' home were executed on the day she was arrested, and you'll hear about these as well. You see, on the wire and through witnesses, law enforcement was repeatedly hearing that the defendant said she had put a locked lockbox into her rented storage area. And although she claimed she couldn't open it, she told people she believed it contained the gun she purchased. She said that her attorney told her just put it in the security area and leave it there and don't touch it. That changed, though, later in the investigation when Dr. Miller permitted law enforcement to consensually record his phone call with the defendant. She told Dr. Miller that she didn't know where the gun was and claimed she checked the lockbox she had previously told him about and found it only had batteries in it. Let's go back now to the search of that rented storage compartment. The detectives, when they searched it, they found the storage compartment and the lockbox, and it was locked. After it was opened by a locksmith, it did indeed contain only a box of batteries. Importantly, the detectives also found Bill's wallet in the storage area. Inside his wallet, the trifold wallet, was his original Social Security card, his health insurance card, and a variety of business cards that you will hear he only obtained in the months immediately preceding his death. We've talked now about the big items of evidence, the evidence from Virginia, including William's remains, the suitcases, the blanket, the trash bags, the bullets. But there's more you'll hear about as the trial continues. You'll hear from experts in trace evidence, and during summation, we'll talk about what all the trace evidence means. You'll learn that all evidence that is processed through the New Jersey State Police Forensic Center enters the laboratory through the criminalistics department, where a criminalist, in this case it's Tom Lesniak, initially examines the evidence and then sends it to a variety of places within the laboratory. Among the items he examined was a piece of tape used to close the garbage bags, used to seal them within the suitcases. Tiny hairs were recovered from a piece of tape, and these hairs were cut on both ends, small little pieces of hair, consistent with razor stubble or shavings. You will hear that one of those pieces of hair, well, let me back up for a minute. Mitochondrial DNA testing was done, and you'll hear about and you'll learn about mitochondrial DNA, which is a special type of DNA test that's used on degraded samples, bones, teeth, but it's especially good for testing hairs. You'll hear that mitochondrial testing showed that these tiny little pieces of hair, again cut on both ends, consistent with razor stubble, one was consistent with the defendant, and one was consistent with the victim. At the end of the case, during summations, we're going to talk about the significance of that discovery and what it tells us about where Billy's remains were put into those garbage bags. We've covered Virginia now. We've discussed her actions the day before and right after he disappeared. Now I want to shift and talk about long after William was gone. I want to talk to you about law enforcement, what law enforcement received after the defendant was arrested. The evidence will show that after defendant's arrest, she made several desperate attempts to misdirect this investigation and shift the focus away from her. On approximately August 31st, 2005, Brad Miller received a letter at his office. It was a copy of a letter to then Attorney General Peter Harvey that we will call the Peter Harvey letter. You'll see and read the Peter Harvey letter, which was written by a person, allegedly, who speaks very much like a tough-talking mobster. This mobster, however, very sensitive mobster, was very concerned that these kids may lose a mother. So he felt compelled to tell law enforcement in 4 pages of single-spaced, typed written text why he knows defendant didn't do it. This mobster was very interested in the defendant. We know that because he talks about her in almost every paragraph. And he instructs law enforcement that we shouldn't care that Billy was inside her luggage. We shouldn't care that she bought a gun. We shouldn't care that the trash bags match. And we shouldn't care because he was there when the victim was killed and she didn't do it. The letter was received by her lover, by her attorney, by the Trentonian, and by the defendant herself. You will hear more evidence during the trial about these letters and will quickly see that the evidence supports that this defendant is behind the letters in an attempt to hinder and mislead law enforcement. You'll hear about other anonymous communications as well. One of them left on Cindy Lagash's, and remember that's Billy's sister, the deceased sister. One of them left on her property. You'll hear about calls to the local police where Cindy Lagash lived, where she was caring for her brother's children. And you will see that with only one exception, all of the anonymous communications received in this case fit a similar pattern. I'm not going to spend time on them now. However, I do want to speak to you about one significant communication, one significant anonymous communication. The evidence will show it was the last one received, and the evidence will show that it was addressed to me. On October 11th, 2005, the grand jury was due to conclude consideration of this case and vote. Detective David Dalrymple from the New Jersey State Police Major Crimes Unit was on the stand at concluding his testimony when the presentation was interrupted. The evidence will show that my assistant, while I was inside the grand jury, had opened a Federal Express package addressed to me, and it contained a letter, a list, and some pieces of evidence. The full picture of this evidence will show you that this package was actually from the defendant, and that this FedEx package was nothing short of a desperate attempt by a guilty woman to mislead and misdirect this prosecution in a poor attempt to save herself. Inside the FedEx package was a letter addressed, "Dear Madam Assistant Attorney General." Keep that phrase in mind during the course of the trial, because this won't be the only time you hear it. "Dear Madam Assistant Attorney General," allegedly, this letter was sent by a work colleague of Cindy Lagash, who was at the time working as a realtor at Weikert Realty. The evidence will show that the sender claimed to have been going through the trash at the real estate office, going through the trash at Weikert, looking for a file in the trash, when he or she happened upon the other contents of the FedEx package. Inside the package was a handwritten list entitled "Set Her Up," and literally it has the word "Set Her Up" across the top, listing in what is supposed to be Cindy Lagash's, again the deceased sister, and Cindy Lagash's handwriting, her plan to set up the defendant for the murder of Bill. Also included in the package was a ring that very well may be the deceased's wedding ring, a man's bracelet, an empty box of Ultramax bullets, a key that fits William's Nissan Maxima that was parked at the motel, and a key that opens the lockbox that the detectives recovered from defendant's rented storage area. Lastly, in the FedEx box was an assortment of prescription drugs, pills, and those pills are what comprise the drug charges in the case. Excuse me. You'll hear other important facts about the FedEx package. Firstly, the return address on the package was incorrect. It said Weikert Realty, Franklin Road, Franklin Lakes, rather than the correct address on Franklin Avenue. Now in Franklin Lakes, Franklin Road and Franklin Avenue are two entirely separate streets, and any person working as a realtor for Weikert would know the difference. Secondly, the postage was paid for with an American Express gift card. Now, many of you probably know that Federal Express postage can be paid for with a credit card. You can write the credit card number in on the shipping label. The sender of this chose to use an American Express gift card. That gift card was purchased at a Rite Aid pharmacy in Passaic County, and we know exactly when and what time, what day and what time it was purchased, because Rite Aid has to activate the card. So the sender used this card to pay for the $8 worth of postage, and it's a $50 card. So the remaining $42 on the American Express gift card remains unspent to this day. Detectives went to that Rite Aid, and they got the security tape that shows the parking area in front of the strip mall where the Rite Aid is attached. You will see the relevant portion of that security tape, and you will decide for yourself its significance. Lastly, the evidence will show that detectives interviewed the staff at Weikert, and no one who works there has any knowledge of this package. The evidence will show that this defendant very much wants Billy's sisters, especially Cindy Lagash, to look very bad. And who better than someone who is related to you, someone who knows all the distasteful things that you've done and said to make you look bad. You will hear evidence that the defendant kept something written by Cindy, and that this writing sample, if you will, provided defendant with the means to create that set her up list, allegedly written by Cindy, that wasn't inside the Federal Express package. Cindy Lagash had no reason to kill her brother. Did they get along all the time? Of course not. They were brother and sister, but they were very close. The evidence will show that this Federal Express package was nothing short of a poor and transparent attempt to shift the focus of the investigation, this time to Cindy Lagash, but you will see, and the evidence will show, that the contents of that package actually prove defendant's own guilt. They support defendant's guilt. You'll hear from a handwriting expert from the FBI who will explain to you that when someone is trying to disguise their writing, it's very difficult to tell who wrote it, and the results you hear about will be inconclusive. But just the same, you'll hear about the comparison, and you'll hear about what the expert found. You'll also hear from a forensic linguist who will compare for you the similarities of these letters and defendant's own writing style. When you look at the letters themselves and you hear all the evidence regarding them, you will see clearly that they came from defendant, perhaps with the assistance of others, but from defendant just the same. I'd like now, very briefly, just to run through the charges in this case that you'll be considering. Defendant is charged with murdering her husband, purposely causing her death, participating in that murder on, about, or between April 28, 2004 and May 5th, 2004. As the judge will tell you during his charge, it doesn't matter whether she's the one who pulled the trigger or not. If she participated in it, she is guilty. You won't hear a specific date or time that William took his last breath, nor do you need one. He was alive on April 28th. He was dead on May 5th when that first suitcase washed up in Virginia. She's charged with possessing a gun with the intent to use it unlawfully between, on or about April 26th, 2004, again, that's the day she purchased the gun, and May 5th, 2004, the day the first suitcase showed up. The gun to this day has never been recovered, nor do you need it. You have the bullets from Billy's dead body. You have the information from the gun shop. She's charged with desecrating or cutting up William's remains. And again, like with the murder, whether it's she that used the knife herself or someone else did it and she helped, she was an accomplice, and Judge DeVisa will explain to you what that means. It makes no difference. She's charged with perjury, committed on April 30th, 2004, when she went into family court for that restraining order, claiming that she had a fight with Bill and he left on his own volition. She's charged with 2 counts of hindering prosecution, 1 for the Peter Harvey letter, the second for the FedEx package, both of which were designed to hinder and mislead this prosecution. Finally, she's charged with tampering or fabricating evidence, false reports to law enforcement, and 3 counts of drug possession. All of those charges pertain to the contents of the Federal Express package. Now, there will be many witnesses who will be coming before you to give small pieces of what I've just described. And further, please know that I did not cover every detail during this opening. Please consider this opening an overview of the case. As we discussed at the end of the trial, I will speak with you again and explain how all of these pieces fit together and lead you to one and only one inescapable conclusion, and that's that this defendant committed each and every crime that she is charged with. And at that time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to convict Melanie McGuire of murder and each and every charge that she's accused of. Thank you.
All right, members of the jury, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Turano, who will be making the opening statement for the defense. Mr. Turano.
Ladies and gentlemen, opening statements are a series of promises. And you should hold Ms. Prezioso to all of those promises. Because, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, This is not like a political process where people sit up and they make promises, and then you get to, after you vote for them prior to they actually make their promises, and only then you see whether they actually fulfilled your trust. This is different. In this case, ladies and gentlemen, you get to vote your actually verdict in this case after you can see if Ms. Prezioso fulfilled each and every one of her promises, the promises she made in her opening statement. And you're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, that she's not going to be able to do that, because the evidence that she presents, the evidence that she talked about, is going to come from here. It's not going to come from the witness stand. She's going to ask you to enter into speculation upon speculation upon speculation. You heard her talk to you about, and I'll talk about it during summation. We'll talk about that during summation. She's going to ask you to engage in rank speculation, conjecture, guesswork. And that's something you cannot do, ladies and gentlemen. Now, my statements today are going to start and essentially conclude with the basic premise that Ms. McGuire is innocent. Ms. McGuire did not murder her husband, William McGuire. She didn't dismember her husband, and she doesn't know who did. And you'll see Ms. McGuire right there. Take a good look. She's obviously nervous. We're all nervous. And over the next few weeks, we'll have opportunity to talk to you more and more about how this evidence and how the case is going to be presented. But I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we did prior to you coming here today. Remember, about a month ago, you filled out a rather lengthy questionnaire. Just last week, you were asked questions by Judge DeVisa. You were asked questions by the lawyers. And some of those questions you probably found intrusive. Well, I apologize for that. But the purpose of those questions was to see if you could be selected as jurors. Jurors who could decide this case fairly and impartially. And you all said that you could. And we believe that you could. And you took that oath. You've made that promise. Whether you can decide this case without any preconceived notions or bias. And you said that you could. And importantly, you also said that you could keep an open mind.